everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of the Crown Report. My name is Brittany, and it's Tuesday, December 16th. We are getting towards the end of the year here. And yeah, there has been a lot going on. We did have, of course, the Buckingham Palace Christmas lunch, which is only the second time it's been back at Buckingham Palace since the pandemic. They previously held it at Windsor Castle, and we did have Catherine and William attending at Buckingham Palace for the first time this year since the pandemic. And I think they've attended the other times when it was held at Windsor, but we don't actually have official confirmation as far as I'm aware. And then we also have, of course, Beatrice and Eugenie showing a very united front as they arrive. I think clearly sending a message to the general public. We also have some updates on Andrew, where he might be living, and the loss of another title, this time a military one, which might hurt all the more. And we do have a very sweet little Christmas display from the Swedes this year. And a couple of royals who have connections to Australia have shared their thoughts. In addition, of course, to Charles and Camilla, Catherine and William, we have Queen Mary of Denmark, who is originally from Tasmania, Australia, talking about the tragedy that happened with the terrorist attack. And then we also have Princess Ingrid Alexander, who was asked about it as well. And she is currently studying at the University of Sydney, although she is back in Norway for the holidays. So much going on. And hopefully we'll catch up on, let's say, a lot of the week's activities. But I think what I wanted to do for this round, which we won't, because I want to do a much longer exploration of this, but really looking at next year and how the British monarchy is standing right now, because I think they're at a lot more unstable footing than I thought they would be at the beginning of this year. Because, of course, Catherine was back doing more engagements. King Charles was doing better as well. We do also have Charles's cancer announcement on Friday, but if you were watching the live stream afternoon tea, you should have seen my reaction to it because it is right there. But we have, I think, some growing concerns, some growing tensions, and some growing crowds who are going, you know what, I'm not so sure about this monarchy thing. And I think sort of the big question is the British monarchy, let's say, modernizing fast enough, and how should they modernize? I think those are huge questions and deserve a much more and more extensive, let's say, discussion in the future. So guys, we are going to again go into all of this, but let's start off with Beatrice and Eugenie, because I thought this was the most interesting, you could say, picture. For some reason, it's not hit any of the big photo agencies. I don't know why, but we do have a picture of Beatrice and Eugenie arriving. And for the Christmas lunch, although they could have been departing, it's sort of hard to tell exactly, but they are grinning ear to ear. And we don't see any kids. I think there are other pictures of them leaving with their kids at a later point, but I think this is them arriving. And it's a very clear message. Just want to double check. It's a very clear message saying we are happy, we are smiling, and we are ready to sort of be with our family. And it's not a slight to their father, but it is definitely clear, I think, Beatrice and Eugenie are not stepping away from the family aspects of their lives as royal women who are part of the British monarchy. And I don't think they should at all. I think this is a good thing to do. But this is, guys, such an obvious, you could say, PR message and very stark. I feel like also as well with the white background of the car, which we've seen that for other years as well for the girls. Again, the message here, we're innocent. It sends a very clear message. This is not, I don't think, let's say, a spur of the moment choice. This was a very obvious, I could argue, and I would say, PR ploy to the best of their abilities to show themselves as a united front with more of the royal side of the family. Now, it could be true that Andrew might be, although I don't think that's the case because the Daily Mail had him seemingly in Windsor. It could be the case that he attended privately in some sort, but that doesn't actually appear here. This is just a really positive message from them and showing where their loyalties lie in some ways. Now, Does this mean that the girls don't have a relationship with their parents? Of course not. They have a relationship with their parents, and we will go over because we did have obviously as well. This week we had the christening of little Athena. And so there was a party afterwards. Now we didn't see any photos of Andrew, but it is believed that he was in this Range Rover arriving. And so that makes sense. He is the girls' father. They are still keeping him within the loop within their lives and these sorts of things. But when it comes to, let's say, the public facing aspects of their lives, they're definitely saying, we are royal. We're arriving to the royal lunch with everybody. We're smiling. We're united. We're together. We're happy. And so it's just one of those things where I think the girls are probably trying to very carefully navigate this very tricky reality that they find themselves in, which is that they like their titles. I don't really blame them. They enjoy aspects of being royalty, but they're aware as well that their father, because of his decisions, which are not tied to them, they're not responsible for what their father has done, might actually lose their titles at some point. So they're playing their cards, you could say, the best that they can. And so I think this is a pretty smart move. I think it's a really clear move of where they're going and what they want to do. Because I mean, obviously they have children. They didn't arrive with their children or husbands, although they did come later, it seems like. So we do have the girls here. And I think when it comes to the Christmas walk at Sandringham, that's still a bit of a toss-up. Now, what we understand is that Andrew has been invited to the private lunch they usually hold after the service. And again, I have actually no issue with that. The reason I have no issue with that is that it's a private family moment. It's Christmas. Like, I get it. I get it. And so I have no issue with that. I actually have no issue with Andrew attending church with them. Let's say he sneaks in a back door because this is a Christmas service. And because it is a Christmas service, like if he is there to worship and honor God, I don't think because it quote unquote looks bad should be a reason why he shouldn't be able to attend. Because what the monarchy should be able to, I think, present, which helps them in their Harry and Meghan argument as well, is that yes, somebody may no longer have the title, but that doesn't mean they're not part of the family anymore. They can still attend these very personal family events, sort of like what Andrew was doing before. And so, yeah, that was how it sort of kind of looked. And I think that's sort of a smart move to make as well. So Andrew could definitely attend privately and go back for lunch, or he could not attend. And then we do, let's say, have the idea that at this point, it seems like the girls, I would guess, let's say if I had to put a guess in, I think the girls will probably do the Christmas walk. Maybe they might not do it next year, but I'm going to posit and suggest that they might be doing it this year. And the reason they're doing this year, again, is look at that picture. It's a united front. We're smiley. We're happy. Like all this stuff going on with our dad. Yes, it's hard and difficult, but it's not bothering us too much. We are still beloved members of the family, which is the image that Charles wants to portray as well. So my theory again is in this instance that in order to again show that unity and show that they're still very much part of the family, I think the girls will go to Christmas at Sandringham and I think they will do the Christmas walk. And since their father has been invited, he can go and be up in Sandringham completely privately. And I think so that they can still be there and interact with him. Him and Sarah will probably be at another property. We do have an idea of which property he will actually be living in. But I think it's incredibly, like, for them right now, this is crisis mode. And when you're in a crisis mode, you kind of have to figure out how to navigate that particular crisis. And they don't obviously want to disparage their father, and they shouldn't. That's sort of not their job, but they also have to be sort of able to demonstrate that they, let's say, that they're still members of the family, that those titles do actually mean something. They're not superfluous. You can't just strip them away like the royal family did to their dad. That they still have those royal titles and that those titles are important to them and that they sort of represent the UK in a very peripheral manner. And they do want to kind of focus on what the future looks like. And so right now it's showing allegiance with the family. Next year, maybe they'll just do it with their mom and dad. Although if their dad lives on Sandringham, which he should at that point, they'd probably be at the Christmas walk next year, unless their dad goes, no, you know what, we're just going to do a family private thing together. I strongly anticipate they will be at the Christmas walk this year. I think, and you got to think as well, like, of course they love their parents and they want to spend the holidays with their parents, but a huge part of being part of the British monarchy is actually going to going to Sandringham, doing that walk, doing the traditions within the family. I think to a lot of them that this would be something that they want to protect as best as possible, something they've engaged their children in. Let's say it's her husband's name is Jack. Her first son's name is August. So August is the oldest out of the York children. So let's say he might be able to go to Sandringham this year. I'm not sure. Think he's 3 or 4. That's probably a little young, but he could technically. Beatrice has brought her stepson to the church service. So he was there. I believe it was in 2023, but not in 2024 because he was spending Christmas with his mom that round. So next time he might be here then. So again, so much sort of interesting dynamics here to consider. But I think with this very clear message, I think the girls are saying, we are still royal. We are still part of the family. We're still going to family events. And yes, things may have happened with her father, but that doesn't mean we're not going to be still part of this fold. So we shall see again how this all plays out, because we're still in the very early stages of what Andrew's dynamic looks like within the family. But again, I feel like this is a very clear message. But you guys, let me know what you think, of course. And let's look at the rest of the pictures. Because again, for some reason, none of these pictures have showed up on Getty Images or Alamy or Shutterstock or Newsroom from AP. I've tried like all the news picture sites. None of them had these pictures. So let's begin, of course, with the Prince and Princess of Wales and their family. Catherine's in a festive red polka dot dress here. We have Charlotte in the back in red velvet. So I'm not sure. I think this might be departing. It's sort of hard to tell because you have instances where they're leaving and they're arriving at the event. And that's why I love that it's at Buckingham Palace. That way people can stand outside and watch and wait and go, oh, everybody's here. Even for me, that tickles my fancy. I would love to be out there one day and try to capture those pictures. But so we have the family here. We'll get more close-up pictures, but Charlotte is in the middle and her brothers are on either side, and there's mom and dad. But what's sort of interesting is that Charlotte arrived. It says, young royal, look forward to the event. So it looks like she arrived, though, with just her dad and Nanny Maria and maybe 1 or 2 of the boys in the back, and Catherine arrived sometime later. So it was sort of interesting because there's actually a picture where it was sort of hard to tell. Like I suggested that I think Charlotte is old enough to ride in the front seat with her dad, which is a shocking reminder of how much older she is now that she's able to ride in the front seat with her dad. She's like tall enough and everything. And it's like, oh, wow, they're getting so old at this point. I was like, where did the time go? But when you actually see this picture, it's very clear Charlotte is in the front seat. She's not in the back, because other people were saying, oh, it's an optical illusion. She's in the back, not the front. She is actually in the front. So with Nanny Maria right there as well. And there's Beatrice and Eugenie. Then we have another picture of Beatrice. The royal was glad to be there. I'm sure she was. And this is her departing, I think. So you can see actually the kids' car seat there in the back, which you can kind of see here as well. So maybe she was arriving with Athena. So we have Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh. She is arriving there. And so, yeah, and we do have Edward and Lady Louise. So I was like, where is Edward? Because Edward doesn't get enough love. Edward does not give enough love. So, and then we do have Princess Anne and Sir Timothy Lawrence there arriving as well. And then we have Eugenie and husband Jack. Either it says also attending, but it could be departing. I'm just curious here, guys. I'm just going to check one thing real quick. Yeah, so Eugenie is wearing the same earrings. So this is definitely from the same day. It's really hard sometimes without the outfits to actually be able to tell like what year this is, because it all sort of looks the same because you can only really see their head. And then we have the Duke of Kent joining the family. And then we have Lady Sarah Chateau and her husband and one of their sons attending as well. And then we have David Armstrong Jones. He is leaving on a bicycle with a brightly colored vest. I think that's adorable. He's like, oh, I'm just biking home, guys. It's all good. And then we have Lady Helen Taylor. They're all wrapped up. And then Princess Alexandra of Kent. She is looking quite frail here. I'm so it's another sign of the older generation passing. Like she looks very frail here and she just looks not, I would argue, not great. And that's not saying because of like her herself. It's just like the age kind of does start to impact you at some point. So it's good to see her though. We also have a Flora and Timothy Vesterberg. So she is the granddaughter of Princess Alexandra. And so she has a little bit of a social media presence. And she is studying for her PhD up in Stockholm. So she has been in Stockholm, Sweden recently. So it's good to see her back. And then we have Lord and Lady Frederick Windsor. And we have their Lady Gabriella in the back. And one, if not both of their daughters, we can't totally see. But yeah, there's Lady Gabriella. And so, yeah, they are on their way in. And there are more pictures of arrival. I know we have Lady Amalia Windsor. She also attended. We have a couple other royals, but to be quite honest, without them, the pictures getting into Getty Images, it makes it a little complicated to kind of get everything together. So I thought this was a pretty good list for those attended. That's Lord Frederick Windsor's wife, Sophie Winkleman. So they pulled in. So it looks like they had a lovely meal. I love this particular event. It's one of my favorites. And it's one of my favorites because it's the whole family together and it's a whole extended family because it's really only Queen Elizabeth's direct descendants and, well, actually King George the Sixth and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother. It is only their direct descendants who do Christmas at Sandringham. So the Gloucesters and the Kents, they do not do Christmas at Sandringham. So I think it's really cool that they have everybody at this pre-Christmas lunch. And it also allows everybody to kind of have a lunch together and then everybody kind of goes their separate way for the Christmas time. I just kind of like this event a lot. I think it's just a really, really sweet one. So, yes, so much to catch up on. I just saw this one and I have to say, what you mean other royal women besides Meghan Markle is accomplished? My husband adored your breakdown of royal female accomplishments in a previous video. Yes, I need to get back to finishing that because I did want to do a whole series talking about all these incredibly accomplished women. They're smart, they're intelligent, a lot of them are very beautiful and they very fashionable and they have careers or skilled, like Zara and her horseback riding. There's a lot of accomplishments within the British monarchy and other monarchies around the world. But, Meghan went to Northwestern. So it's like, oh my goodness. It's just like, it has to be so impressive. And I think we can all agree fairly much anymore. Although I love school. I loved going to university. I love having my master's degree. I love that process of being educated. I think it is amazing. But when it comes to universities, there's a lot of universities that are even high ranking where it's like, yeah, was it really all that helpful? Did you really learn all that much? Because now you can't think. You're just regurgitating what somebody else told you. So it's just sort of interesting to see people talk about that. So yes, a wonderful, lovely, lovely event for sure. Again, one of my favorites every year. And so we'll see how everything goes. But we do have some updates on Andrew here. Sorry, guys, for the cough. And we have an update on what things are looking like for him. So obviously he was not, as far as we're aware, at this Christmas lunch. And he is obviously getting maybe acquainted or hearing about his new home. So what happened and why the media is knowing about this and talking about this is that when it comes to Sandringham, there is a no-fly zone over it. And so they have extended that no-fly zone a little bit. And it encompasses this particular property. And so many are considering this as Andrew's potential new home. And why, again, they're moving him from like they could have put him in Frogmore Cottage. Like that had been discussed quite a bit. Why they moved him from like the Windsor estate over to Sandringham is that at Sandringham, it is a privately owned property, while the Windsor stuff is Crown Estate. So putting him on a private property means that Charles can basically do whatever he wants because he's like, this is my property. And so I think it seems like where probably Andrew will land. And because of potential threats against him, it sort of makes sense to give him a new property. And so this is it. So it's called Marsh Farms. And it looks pretty nice from what I can tell. I guess it needs a lot of upgrades. It's sort of a little bit run down. And this is totally I think fine. It's going to be hard. And I think that for him, I think it's the ego aspect of the downgrade that I think he's having a real hard time with. When you are somebody who is older, like I know my parents have done this, you downsize. My grandparents, they downsize. People want less house to maintain because they're older. It's harder. And yes, he has servants to help him do that. And I don't know if he pays for them. I don't know if his brother pays for him. But they have servants who do that. But like he needs to downgrade. He can host, of course, his daughters and their children and families. Although if they're there on the estate, they can probably stay at a different aspect. They can stay at the house proper or something and come over. So I should look real quick here, guys, and see if this pops up on a map, because I'm just curious where this exactly would pop up on the map. Okay, cool. I love maps, guys. Did I ever tell you guys I love maps? Maps are one of my favorite things. So, because I feel like it gives you, that's why I love traveling, and it's why I love actually going to places where royals are and doing royal events, is because it gives me such a greater perspective and understanding of the mechanics of situations, how people get from point A to point B, where things are at in relation to each other. And so when I see pictures and images and these sorts of things, I can go, oh yeah, I know exactly where I that is. I've been right there, or I saw it from a distance or something like that. That is absolutely what I enjoy. So here is sort of the map. So the Sandringham Estate main part is right here, and Marsh Farm apparently is over here. So it looks to be a fairly nice place. Let me see if we can put the little man down. We can put the little man down, guys. So yeah, it looks like that is the spot. Let's get a little closer so we can kind of see it. Like it looks like a nice place. I don't know exactly. I mean, it's not going to be Royal Lodge, but what is? So it's hard to kind of get, but we do know that that's essentially where that is. So this is the Marsh Farm. So it looks like that is where Andrew shall be. And it is an area, let's see. Looks like there's a couple of not farms, excuse me. Looks like there's a couple of homes here. So I don't know if people could stay there or they have to vacate, but they can definitely probably, I would imagine they have control over, some aspects of this so people can't get too close, although it is a little, you could say, close to things, but it might be that these are, let's say, grace and favor homes right here, so that the royal family has a little bit more control over that. Oh, the royal station. What is that? Is it a train station? It might be. No, it's not a train station, but it looks like a train station. No, maybe the train goes that way. I don't know. Anyways, and so the main estate, though, is over here. So that's not, let's say, like a long distance to Marsh Farms. So walking, you can walk that in 30 minutes, apparently. Or you can drive in 4. So, although you just get to here, that's the closest you can get. So it's probably more like an hour's walk, if I'm being honest, from here to here. But it should be, let's say, a 10-minute car ride. I think we can all agree that that's probably fairly possible. So anyways, this is what it looks like for Andrew. So I think this is a fine establishment, but if it needs some upgrades, that's great. Obviously, he has to figure out like somebody said, where to put his teddy bears. And it's more about, I think, the ego below. The loss of Royal Lodge is more about ego than it is about the practicality of having an estate that big. And the question I think becomes is what do they do with Royal Lodge? Now, there's a lot of pressure on the monarchy right now, which again is how we need to kind of look at, let's say, everything with the question over peppercorn rents and the Crown estate and the duchies of Cornwall and Lancaster, because there's been a lot of pressure, you could say, on the monarchy recently to sort of justify its existence in some way. Because what people are saying is that it is a waste of time. It is a waste of time. And that they need to figure out, let's say, the monarchy, how to not, quote unquote, overspend or these sorts of things. And it's going to be a tough, I think, a tough situation because the future of the monarchy is somewhat looking bleak. And they need to, let's say, for Royal Lodge in that particular instance, I would suggest if it was me and I had, let's say, control over the situation, I would say, hey, let's open this up to the public. It's where the Queen Mother used to live. It's where Edward had his abdication. I believe it was. Was it at Abner Hall? I think it was close to Abner Hall. Anyways, or it was where Wallace and Edward lived for a period of time. So it has some historic connections that I think would be of interest to people to tour. But again, it seems so we have seen overall in the monarchy, and just FYI, if you're not on the Royal Collection Trust website, I think it is a great opportunity if you are in London or planning on traveling to London between like January and March. They are doing the East Room tours of Buckingham Palace again. I have done it. I thought they were like very, very good. I enjoyed it. It was very cool to be in the room where the balcony is and actually be able to see out and like see what the balcony is. That's very cool. It's again a lot smaller than you think it is. Like it would just be so cool to walk on there. Although they did say if you open those window doors, like you will be immediately escorted out, never to be seen again, kind of thing. So that was something. But if you are interested, there are tickets available. I would strongly suggest that you go do that. Oh yeah, and Carol said it was Fort Belvedere. Yeah, I didn't think it was, but Edward and Wallace definitely lived at Royal Lodge for a while. But I think opening it up and gaining more revenue would be a good thing. That's sort of what Buckingham Palace and at the Royal Collection Trust, like with opening up St. James's Palace and these sorts of things to tours, is a way to increase revenue and maybe stave off some of the criticism. Now, I think I'm going to do a whole video after this to edit for Royal News Network, sort of about how that GB News had to backtrack from a statement they made about Doria, which was like an obscenely dumb statement to make by a journalist. And there's obviously been a lot of attacks on the veracity of journalists and these sorts of things. And people are saying, well, they're just trying to stir things up. They're just trying to stir things up, whatever. There are things to stir up because you let things be stirred up in terms of you leave yourself open to criticisms and there's certain things. You're not addressing things fast enough. So people are finding things and these sorts of things. And so I think there needs to be sort of a kind of a greater kind of understanding of where the monarchy sits and not the complacency of everything is going to be okay. The monarchy will weather this. It'll be fine. It may not be fine. I don't think it's a good idea to just sit there and go, well, let's just let things lie. It'll go away. People get distracted. And that is true to a certain extent. But when it comes to the monarchy, the reason the Andrew situation has gotten so bad is that they did ignore it for so long, or they tried to think, oh, it will go away. And that's just going to be how it is. And when you leave yourself so open to vulnerability and criticism, it's just hard to get that, let's say, to kind of go away in a lot of ways. And so just to end on Andrew real quick, he has been stripped of his last military title. He is no longer holds the rank, an honorary rank of Vice Admiral, and has been instead reduced to the rank of Commander, Retired Royal Navy. So the Defense Secretary announced this as the last remaining title that would be removed by the government on guidance from the King. The spokesperson for the Ministry of Defense saying, following formal consideration, the Defense Council have agreed the immediate reversion from the rank of Vice Admiral to the rank of Commander, retired Royal Navy, the rank held on retirement from the regular naval service by Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. This decision aligns with the such processes as to remove other titles, other styles and titles. So I'm glad they didn't remove ones that he earned. I don't think they did because he did win an honor. I'm not for removing titles somebody has earned. I think that's going too far. But I think when it comes to Andrew in the future, that there needs to be a way to sort of like, this is the last, yes, and it didn't have to get to this level. The monarchy allowed it to get to this level, and I think that's just something to really keep in mind. It's like, again, how do they look at the future? There has to be a way for them to look at the future, figure out what things are going to go forwards because they have a big challenge here. How do they navigate Andrew and especially Harry? Harry's gonna be the other big thorn in the side for so long. So let's go ahead and move on to real quick here. I thought this was a really cool thing for Charles to do. Obviously, he gets a lot of criticism for, I would argue, is somewhat true, more universalist perspectives. He's gotten a lot of, let's say, criticism for embracing the Muslim faith a little bit and having, Muslim events, specific events at like Windsor Castle and these sorts of things. So he did attend a service recently at Westminster Abbey to celebrate Christian witness. And so he joined faith leaders from across the UK and Middle East to attend a service to celebrate Christian witness in Advent at Westminster. He said, "It is great joy to gather with you in the most glorious setting of Westminster Abbey as we celebrate the light, hope, and above all, the peace of this season of Advent. This period of preparation, of readying ourselves and looking forward to the wonder of Christ's birth. Today we gather for prayer, reflection, and music to celebrate the good news in which all Christians rejoice. Those around us and those in areas where it is not easy to live out one's faith." So I thought this was a great service and event for Charles to do. Obviously, lots of faith represented. I mean, I'm sure he'll still get a level of criticism from things. So he met with Christian leaders. But I think this was a good move for Charles because he does have the challenge here. And this is a challenge of all royals, in particular, one that for Charles is especially acute because he is head of the Church of England, which really no other royal, I don't think, actually holds. So he is head of a church. So he has to be a huge representative of the Christian faith. But at the same time, obviously, there has been a huge increase in the population of Muslims in the UK. And so he has to walk this line between recognizing that, yes, England has been and the UK has been a historically Christian nation, but not everybody subscribes to that faith. But I need to hold to the faith because I represent the faith. And yet, yes, it's not an easy guidelines. And I don't know if he totally manages it all that well, to be honest. Sometimes, again, I think in the desire to embrace and make sure people don't feel left out, sometimes I think people overreach and you end up with sort of a thing where you're almost placating rather than addressing. So that is definitely something to consider. But that was like a fun event to see Charles in. And we also have one of my personal favorite royal events that I forgot about until it was on yesterday. And that is the presentation of trees to Stockholm Palace by the School of Forestry there in Sweden. And what they've done, which is sort of, you can actually see it a little bit, although here in the picture, I think you can see the picture. We actually can see that it's become sort of a tradition to have the young families go and greet the trees. And I think in the last 2 years now, we've had it to be all the cousins go and greet the members of the forestry school as they deliver these trees. So let's go ahead and take a look at this fun, very, very sweet little video. So we won't do the cousins. So we have, this is Princess Leonor. We have, I think that's Prince Alexander. We have Prince Oscar or maybe that's, so Gabriel. I believe that might be Gabriel and this might be Prince Alexander. So so for Sophia and Carl Philip, it is Alexander, Gabriel, Julian, and Ian's. Oh, I guess you can't hear the music. Never mind. You guys can't hear the music. So there is little Prince Gabriel, I think it is. And so that you can tell they're getting things. And then there's Princess Estelle, who is looking so grown up, guys. She will be 14 next year. She will be 14. That's just, it makes you feel really old when you see like the kids, you remember them being born, they're becoming adults and teenagers and these sorts of things. Because I really started watching royals a lot more closely around the time of Catherine and William's wedding, which was when actually Prince Vincent and Josephine were born in Denmark. That was why Queen Mary actually did not end up attending Catherine and William's wedding, is because it wasn't too long after the birth. They were born in January. The wedding was in April. And so now Princess Estelle, and it's like, oh my gosh, I feel so old, guys. Starting to feel the age here, feel the age. So it's just event for sure. So let's go ahead and keep watching. And they're there with their grandma. And so there's Prince Nicholas, who's also gotten quite tall and is looking quite grown up. Oh, Prince Julian. He ran off. And so Leonore's posing for a picture there. That's Princess Madeline's daughter, and that's Princess Madeline's son. And then that's her other daughter, Adrian. There's Queen Sylvia watching her grandchildren decorate the tree. And there's little baby Ian's. So cute. And Estelle holding her goddaughter. So Princess Ian's right there is Estelle's goddaughter. So I thought that was a cute little interaction. Oh, that's so cute. So it says in a caption, this year's Christmas trees delivered by the kings to the palace, the castle of the hunting master students from Umeå. So I just think that is the most darling little event. And it's fun to see Princess Ian's. She's still very young. She is 10 months old now. And so I just love this. I love it so much, although I still can't pronounce her name correctly. No matter how many times people show me, it's like, oh, it's like this. I was like, I attempt and it's never right. So I sort of officially give up. Not that I want to, but sometimes there's just, there's just not a lot of routes we can go to. So I will just give a brief little update, you could say, here on Princess Sophia. So let's go ahead and pull up her picture because she just celebrated her 41st birthday. Oh, what is the necklace? Because that looks like a Taurus sign. I just hate astrology stuff. So anyways, I don't know, but maybe that's not my thing, but I don't know what that represents. So if you guys know what it represents there on her necklace, let me know. It looks like the sign for like Taurus or something. Anyways, so Princess Sophia, we discussed this last week, was revealed to have met with Jeffrey Epstein. And the palace, you could say, was a little bit vague about sort of her interactions. And they wouldn't even name him. They would go, oh, the man that she communicated with, or the man in question. Like, I was like, just say his name. We like know who you're talking about. But it was kind of like a challenge here. And that's what, let's say, this editor is asking for. So this is from Svensk Dam Tidings. And so this is from their chief editor, Johan T. Lindwall. And he's saying he's urging Princess Sophia to come forward. He says, I think it's better to be transparent. And we went over this whole article from Doggins last week. So if you guys are interested in that 150%, go ahead and look up the article. It's a title, or the video, it's titled Royals and Epstein. And so this is sort of the language that the court used. It says Princess Sophia has been introduced to the person in question on a few occasions around 2005. So I would argue, and I would agree with the editor, this is very vague. It's a very vague wording. And it says, at this time, I was actually stationed in Manhattan. So this is the editor, New York, as a correspondent for Expressen. And that's when Sophia came there. It was a Swedish colony during that time. And at the time, you heard that the Swedish colony hung out with a lot of world stars, including Johnny Depp and famous music artists, but also millionaires and an American billionaire. And then his name was mentioned in that context, Johan said. And I will say again, this is from Google Translate, so this is not a exact translation. So just keep that in mind. It says it wasn't anything I reflected on more then, but they were out a lot at these places. They were out in the Hamptons, especially on weekends. So it was a big network at the time. And Johan clarifies that Jeffrey Epstein was not a notorious name at the time. So they weren't really aware of, you could say, the dangers of Epstein or who he was. And so on Thursday, the court issued a response to express it. No one can be expected to remember all the people they have met in their lives. But what Princess Sophia remembers is that she met Epstein a few times around 20 years ago. We want to clarify and make it clear that this happened in social contexts, such as a restaurant and a film premiere. So she sort of remembers where she met him. So she does and she doesn't. From what I understand, Sophia has met the now deceased person on several occasions, including at cocktail parties, dinners, and receptions. And I am convinced that the right thing to do now for the Swedish royal family is to lie flat, like how it says lie flat, not lie flatly, but lie flat. There's probably a specific Swedish word they're using, and say that this contact has occurred. So I think it was exemplary of the information department to do this and talk about this. The only thing I can miss now is that I want to hear Sophia's version. I think the entire royal family, the entire court, and everything around the monarchy and everything that's happening around the world right now around this affair would benefit from Sophia giving her version. And it ends with, I think it's better to be completely transparent in this situation like this. Sophia, of course, has nothing to hide, quite the opposite. I think she would benefit from telling and maybe taking the story down a bit. So she was introduced to Epstein through this woman, basically Barbara, and she was like essentially funneling women to Epstein. Like, she's real shady. Let's be honest here. She was pretty shady, in my opinion. But what I will say is that yes, so like I understand why there's such a concern and why perhaps like the Swedish monarchy would be benefited from being a little bit more transparent and especially not using such like distancing language, because she did meet with him, like they admit that, is because of how everything has gone so badly with Andrew, that the Swedish royal family, I'm sure, is like scrambling going, okay, what did you know? When did you know it? How did you meet him? Like, I'm sure they probably know a little bit more than what they've told the press, and they're hoping this little bit they give to the press is enough to, let's say, kind of slow down the kind of the churning of the media cycle. But at the same time, I can see where it's concerned. It's like, okay, you didn't give us enough, then you find out more, then you find out more, then you find out more, and it sort of builds and grows and condenses and these sorts of things. And so given how that has happened with Andrew, it's like he admitted a little bit and he still hasn't admitted much, but like trickles of things come out and it's found out that he's lied and these sorts of things. I think that comes to a very challenging circumstance, and one that the Swedish royal family does need to figure out how to address. I think they've done a pretty good job so far. I just think that the kind of the weirdness of saying, well, the man in question is a little odd to me. It's a little odd, but it also could be just like how the Swedish word thing. So that could be a total like misunderstanding on my part as an American between the Swedes and the Americans. Like 100% that could be a misunderstanding. So I will say that for sure. But yeah, the story continues to churn and we'll see where it ends up. But we do have two things here real quick. Stephen Magnus, one of our members, said Andrew left with the kids. Adults went drinking. So this was in regards to Princess Beatrice's, or I should technically say Athena's christening with Princess Beatrice. And yeah, the parents went out afterwards. And I'm like, I remember seeing those pictures going, where are the kids? Like the whole point of the event was to have a christening for the child, and the child is not there. So the parents got some alone time after the christening. To be rich and famous, right? Because not all people can do that after a christening. And Stephen also gave a super chat. Thank you so much, saying Doria might have it expunged. This process, if granted by the court, effectively destroys or erases the record of the crime, allowing the individual to legally state that the event never occurred. So this is in regard, of course, to Doria. And again, I want to do sort of a whole video on this. But the thing is, we have no evidence anything happened. There's zero evidence. What we do have evidence of, I think, is that, yeah, Doria wasn't around that much. I don't think she was when Meghan was growing up. Meghan herself has basically alluded to that. It is, and so I don't want to give away kind of the punchline of the other piece. But I will say, like, when she is quoted in Harper's Bazaar, she talked about competent mothers on television. And I can't help but think, but okay, so you must have seen an incompetent mother in person, which is why you're saying competent mother is what you were searching for and what you wanted to see and what you wanted to do because you saw something else. So I will say, and I have always agreed that something kind of like, I think they've exaggerated Doria's like influence in Meghan's life overall. However, there's no evidence of crimes being committed, no evidence of being in prison or anything like that. It's just vicious rumors, and that it was ever reported live on television as if it was stated fact is a miscarriage of you. I don't know if you want to call it justice or miscarriage of journalism, because you cannot report rumors on Twitter as fact. You just can't. This is why I show you articles. This is why I bring up and try to give you guys as much, let's say, facts and reporting as possible, rather than just saying I saw a thread on Twitter. Don't go by what you see on threads on Twitter. Half of them are fake, if not false, outright. Think about it, read the articles, what makes sense, what doesn't, these sorts of things. That's an incredibly important thing to understand. And because of the kind of shattering of journalism in a lot of ways, we have seen this rise of people not trusting journalists and not doing things here either. So that is what I will say when it comes to Meghan in that particular instance, and Doria. And honestly, I hope Doria does sue the heck out of him and then proves that she wasn't in prison, because then that whole rumor can die. Like, sue the heck out of him, get rid of the rumor. Then we can concentrate on real things to talk about and not really things that aren't really worthy talking about. So let's move on to a more somber topic, which was the terrorist attack in Australia recently. Of course, hearts and prayers are still out there with the Australian people as they process this, especially targeting the Jewish community there and the overall rise of anti-Semitism. And we did have two royals who did respond in, let's say, television or interview format. And so let's go ahead and watch Princess Ingrid Alexandra. She is now in university in Sydney, so she shares a little bit about her thoughts. It's of course in Norwegian, so probably won't be able to understand it, but I think it's good to hear as well.
Prinsesse om terrorangrepet i Sydney, og hvordan påvirker det videre studieopphold?
Nei, mine tanker går til alle de som har mistet noen, og spesielt til det jødiske samfunnet både i Australia og her i Norge. Og så jo Sydney en by jeg har blitt veldig glad i. Så det jo litt merkelig og utenkelig egentlig at det har skjedd akkurat der.
So she expresses her condolences of course, the relationship between Norway and Australia. And I'm sure she was going to Australia in some ways to avoid, because I know a lot of people talk about it, potential gun violence in the States, which is a very real reality. And then there's gun violence in Sydney, a place where it doesn't seem like there are a lot of that gun ownership is much more difficult to obtain. So like it is such a challenge, and you want to be safe. It's always weird because I've had instances where places I've either lived or worked or whatever have been somewhat peripherally connected to either violence or maybe a natural disaster or something like that. And it's always a very strange feeling because it's like, I know exactly where that is. I've been there. I've stood exactly where that person stood, and sometimes when they died, I'd like to know exactly what store that is, what street that is, and these sorts of things. And it's a very strange feeling. So that's something that is very, of course, interesting to consider. And yeah, it's one of those things. So it's obviously very impactful. And of course, I think the person who's feeling it the most probably is Queen Mary of Denmark, because she is actually from Tasmania, Australia. So here is Her Majesty right before an event talking about it. It's brutal at Bondi Beach. And again, she has been to Bondi Beach. I'm sure her family's been to Bondi Beach. So
det australske folk og det jødiske samfund.
So she looked quite emotional there, I think. And, all of her family is still in Australia, so they could have been like within the vicinity or close to there or these sorts of things. And so obviously it's very much a big concern, I'm sure, for her in so many ways. So that I just thought would be, I should have increased it a little bit so you guys could see it a little bit better. But there is Her Majesty. And we did obviously have comment from His Majesty King Charles as well as Catherine and William, but we'll just look at His Majesty and obviously Camilla as well. And he said, "My wife and I are appalled and saddened by the most dreadful anti-Semitic terrorist attack on Jewish people attending the Hanukkah event at Bondi Beach. Our hearts go out to everyone who has been affected so dreadfully, including the police officers who were injured while protecting members of their community. We commend the police, emergency services, and members of the public whose heroic actions no doubt prevented even greater horror and tragedy. In times of hurt, Australians always rally together in unity and resolve. And I know that the spirit of community and the love that shines so brightly in Australia and the light of the heart of Hanukkah festival will always triumph over the darkness of such evil." So that is His Majesty's response. And there's been a lot of discussion, I think, of Catherine and William and like increasing talks of Catherine and William going to Australia in next year, maybe early next year. That would sort of make sense to kind of capitalize on the connection to Australia in light of sort of, if you want to call it, everything going on. I think that would be quite fantastic. And King Frederick and Queen Mary also sent letters, as did Prince Albert of Monaco, King and Queen of Sweden, and I'm sure other royals as well that I haven't seen all their letters. But it's one of those things where it's nice to see so many royal families come out and support and share their condolences with particular tragedies. I think that's a really nice thing to see. All right, so we are getting towards the end of our hour here, but let's look at some other interesting news here. So it seems that Princess Elizabeth will one day step into the shoes of her aunt, Princess Astrid, who has been heading Belgian economic missions. And I thought this was really interesting because it sort of reminds me a bit of Andrew, although Princess Astrid is obviously a much better actor than Prince Andrew. And she has been acting as a Belgian economic sort of kind of minister and these sorts of things, and is stepping back due to health issues. She's struggling with back pain and sleep problems, as well as a crippling fear of failure because she's too much of a perfectionist. That's quite the issue there. I can imagine that would be tough, and she's wanting to make sure that she obviously keeps everything on the up and up, but it's becoming, perhaps a bit too much. Princess Elizabeth is currently studying grad school there at Harvard University. And so it seems to be that Elizabeth will pick up that role once she is out of school and sort of they're taking on more and more royal roles. So that's just something to keep in mind. I thought that was a little bit interesting there. And we do have Princess Astrid as well, talking to a quote unquote royal fan who told Princess Astrid she enjoyed her work as the head of Belgian trade missions. And she agreed, but it's very, very tiring. She added, she repeated her message, very, very tiring. I do my best and God does the rest. So I think that's lovely to see. I think so much of the Belgian monarchy seems absolutely lovely to me. Like they don't stand out too much in some ways because there's not, let's say, they don't have a ton of tiaras and they're not super flashy or anything. But I think they do a good job representing their people. And I think the benefit that Princess Astrid has really is that her husband is a member of the Habsburg household. And so in some ways she is not as, let's say, it doesn't have the challenge as much of, let's say, wanting to be in the spotlight or these sorts of things. I don't think she has that, let's say, drive, because although I will say her brother is sort of a pain in the tuchus, Prince Laurent. He has been quite the guy wanting more attention and prestige and everything than he does have. And so he's been sort of a thorn in their side for sure. And so that is like you have a little bit of everything. You have a little bit of everything. So that is, I think, again, obviously in all family members, you have family members who are strong in their faith or in terms of how they work for the monarchy and those who aren't. And so let's move over real quick. We'll kind of wrap up again back over to Norway. And then there was a chapel service, it looks like, held for the members of the emergency services. So we have Prince Magnus here, Princess Ingrid Alexandra, Crown Princess Metamara, and then Crown Prince Haakon. So these are the parents, these are the kids. You can see the resemblance. Ingrid Alexandra very much resembles her dad, and Sir Magnus more resembles his mother. So I think it's good to see them there. Magnus is back in Norway after, I didn't include this in another video, but he did break up with his girlfriend and they were living out there in Milan together. And so he's only there like, I want to say it was even just like a couple months or something. And then he was back home. He's apparently going to start some sort of production company that he is solely in charge of. And so that will be, let's say, interesting and revealing to see where that goes. Because they do obviously have, there's Ingrid Alexandra, there's Sir Magnus, and I wanted to see if we can see this here. Let's push on her little thing, because there was they call it a gathered for pre-Christmas fun, and the royal family was seen going to the Nutcracker. Of course, you have the problematic element here of Princess Martha Louise and her husband, Shaman Durek Verrett, and we have Queen Sonia here. We have Princess Ingrid Alexandra. She's there with her two cousins. And this is sort of one of those complicated things, because I totally understand the family wanting to go together. Like, I totally support that, but he's definitely a problem. And Martha Louise is like, the two of them have very much monetized their royal titles. They did a Netflix documentary. And so it's sort of a challenge here of how do you have a family event without it looking like you're kind of sort of endorsing somebody. And I think that is, I don't know if Norway is totally kind of succeeding in that scenario, because I don't know if this was, again, the best idea to make it such a, let's say, a public event type of thing. And there's Sonia with Queen Margrethe. They were in Denmark because she went and supported Margrethe's recent design for a performance at the famous, I'm blanking on the name of the amusement park there in Denmark. So she was there for that. And I just think that's absolutely amazing that those royal ladies support each other, especially as they're getting up there in years. So guys, that is it for today's edition of the Crown Report. We'll do some questions here real quick. And I did see a question asking, is this a corgi in a, like a Christmas outfit? And technically, yes, I believe it's supposed to be a corgi. And this corgi is, like, technically, I think it's supposed to go outside or something. I don't know, but I thought he was kind of cute inside. So he's here, and it's just a fun, it actually ended up working really well with the tree and him in the background, kind of give it a nice little, like, cozy, homey feel back here. So I do love it. So guys, thank you so much again for tuning in. So if you guys have any questions about this particular Crown Report, let me know. So Louise says, are you going to talk about your favorite events of the past year in a video and what you are looking forward to next year? Yes. So I'm going to plan on doing a couple of like wrap up style videos. So I got to start working on those a little bit. So P Pacific says, King Charles hands out gift wrapped present to each royal child at the festive family celebration, as did the late Queen Elizabeth. Aw, Asma says, say hi to Miss Pippa. I will. So Carol says, Queen Sonia was in support of Queen Margrethe and was in charge of production for a play, and her sister Benedict was also there. Yes, that is right. Daryl says, oh, it's a corgi. Yes, it is. It is definitely a corgi. Louise says, are you planning on having a tiara party the first day of the new year when the BRF step out in their finest? Yes. So it would be, so it'll depend. I'm waiting to hear back on something. Either we will be doing a tiara watch party, or I will hopefully be covering it in person. We will see. And so maybe we'll have a tiara like kind of wrap up party the next day or something. That would be kind of the plan. So Tune the News says, thank you. You are welcome. You are very welcome. But Sorry, guys, for the little bit of the yawn there. But yeah, it's one of my favorite events every year. And I love that it's like it definitely goes out. It's definitely a big event. Asma says, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas to you. Louise says, you go girl, happy holidays and happy new year. Why, thank you. Why, thank you. So if we don't have like too many questions or anything, guys, we can go ahead and wrap this up. So that way I can get on to filming and then editing the next video about everything going on with kind of Doria, because I do find that to be a very interesting little story there to kind of explore, especially when it comes to aspects of journalism and these sorts of things. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. And so next week, I'm still debating whether or not we'll do something live or if it'll be a record. So I haven't exactly decided yet, to be honest. So I will let you guys know in the future here. And so, guys, thank you again so much for watching, and I shall speak to you very soon.